Welcome back to part two of our attempt to create the world's best tip calculator. Last time you saw that we stopped here with our calculator providing the tip and total amount for different values of the tip based on how you felt about the service. So let's quickly run that and see if it's still working as expected. Build succeeded. Great news. Now the app is loading up and the bill amount. Remember, we had changed the keyboard to numeric. That's why it stays here and does not start with your regular QWERTY keyboard. So let's do 67. And if you recollect, we changed this to the number pad. I want to split it three-way. Hit calculate. There you go. We also learned how to handle the keyboard. So anytime you touch anywhere outside of this, it's going to disappear. That's a good thing. So our tip calculator is working as expected. In this video, we are going to attempt to make this a truly global tip calculator. For that, we need some kind of UI controls. I'm going to add a label and call it settings. That's where here and in future we will add all the settings. And for now, I want a button. This button doesn't really matter in terms of alignment because we are going to use the magical button here called stack when we are ready. I'm going to start with United States. It's the default label for the button. And I'm going to introduce you to a new control which is called a picker view. It looks like this. This is a list that scrolls up and down, and it'll have all the values that you assign to it so that you can select what you need. We are going to add all the different countries in here. Let me select all that and use this button stack. So now it's neatly stacked up. I'm going to increase the spacing a little bit, give it some breathing room. Not so much. And as we learned, we are going to add some constraint to the entire stack view. I want it horizontal in container, and I want it to be at a certain distance from these top controls. So let me do 50, pin this up, 50. Added that constraint as well. So all good. I'm going to remove some of the code in here so we can start fresh. Alright, wrong code, didn't mean to remove all of that, only this part. Well, let me comment it out. So what we are planning to do now is to hold the names of all the countries and the tip percentage there. You can see United States starts at 15, Mexico at 10, Germany at 15. What the data type we are using here is called dictionary, and the way you define it is exactly how you see. You give it a name, and then within the square brackets you have it hold key value pairs. So you can hold your country and a tip percentage here. It's called dictionary because, you know, dictionary is the classic key value pair where we have a word and its meaning. So it always goes in pairs. That is this data type. You can use it to hold any type of values. Here we are using a string and an integer, but it could be an integer and an integer, or any combination you would like. So this dictionary data type currently holds a few countries that I've added and the tip percentage. I'm going to add this variable, which is country names, which is an array of, eventually I'm going to add all these countries into this array, which is going to be assigned to this UI picker. And the way why I do it is because this control, the picker view, works best with arrays, and it doesn't directly bind with a dictionary. It needs a single, it needs an array from where it can read all these values. So that's why I'm having this array here. I'm going to define this variable called country name. At any point of time, it's going to hold the country name. We are going to be in one particular country at any given point of time, and this variable will be assigned that value. And similarly, this variable is going to hold tip percentage. I'm defaulting it to 15. Similarly, you can default it to anything you want, because it doesn't matter. It'll depend on what you choose from here. So we have all our variables defined over here. Now what we want to do is add some functions that is going to allow us to control these UI elements. So first thing, I want this button, and I'm going to make an outlet for that. I'm going to name it button country and text. And you can see typically for a button we always use action, right? For this one we are calling it an outlet. Why so? That's because whatever country we choose here, I want that to be assigned. The name of the button should be that particular country. So for that I need to control this button as an outlet and not just what happens when it's pressed. I need a way to assign this label to it. So I make that connection. I'm going to, all right, so that is that. I'm going to assign this picker view. I'm going to assign various values into it. So I'm going to name this picker country. And I'm going to connect it. So our outlets are defined. So once these outlets are defined, I also want to do one more thing, right? This outlet, we use the button outlet so that we can change the label of the button. But we also want to be able to do certain things when this button is pressed. So again, I right click, drag it here. This time it's an action. And I'm going to name it button country press connect. So this function will be run when I click that button. So all the basics are in place in terms of connecting these elements in code. Now what's the first thing I want to do? The first thing I want to do is when this application loads, I want to take all the country names and add it into this array so that I can take all the values from this array and assign it to this picker view, because every time the app loads, I want this picker view to have all the country names in it. So how would you do that? I'm going to write a loop for that. So that would be your introduction to the for loop. Let's look at this function here. This is the for loop. Let me delete it and start all over again. So I want to do for country name, comma, country tip percentage in dictionary country. So the way you're writing this for loop is you're saying you want this pair here, that's the country name and country type percentage, in dictionary. So it's going to loop through this dictionary like one by one, here, 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 and hold the values at that particular iteration in these two variables. So once those values come in that variable, our intention is to use the array country names. Dot append is how you're going to add a new value to an array. I'm just going to add the country name. So that should loop through and put all the values in this dictionary, but only the country name in this array that we had created. That's the introduction to the for loop. That's how you loop through a dictionary object and use the values within the dictionary. This is saying that it wants to replace country type percentage with an underscore because we are not using it anywhere within the loop. That's fine with us. I usually don't fight too much with the suggestions. I just go with it. So now this loop runs and everything, all the country names would be added to that array. So now we are ready. We have an array which holds all these country names, and now we are going to go ahead and start populating this control. So how do you do that? So for that, you have to extend this view controller class. Like we saw last time, we used the UI text field delegate. This time we are going to use the picker view delegate. So if you remember, what that means is now this class can, it's extended from this, and you can override any of the functions in here within the code, and it will execute that. So let me show you how to get there. You press command and click, and these are all the functions that are available to the picker view delegate. We are specifically interested in these functions over here. I'm going to go back to my notes where I have made it handy to copy over. So where's my picker functions? I'm just going to use the picker functions and bring it over into my code. So these four functions that comes from that, from this class that we extended it to. And I'm going to use the first function here is it's asking how many components. So this picker view can actually have multiple columns. Here we just want one column which will have all the country names. So I'm going to simply say return 1, indicating it's going to be one column. And in the second one, it's asking me the number of rows. So how many total number of rows do we have? And we are going to return our array country names dot count. So it'll have that many number of rows. Then it's asking us for what's the value in each of these rows. How do we know that? We know that if we are going to go through the array, then I'm going to just return array country names and the index would be row. As you can see, when it iterates through this variable called row, is going to have that index of wherever you are at when you're scrolling. So one by one, it's going to populate all the country names within that. And then the final function over here, it's asking that once you make a selection, what needs to happen? So two things need to happen. I'm going to go back to a variable, that's the country name, and I'm going to say that the country name is the array country names, uh, and the index would be row. So what this is saying is once you're scrolling, this row is going to hold the index number, and the country name would be whatever index number of that array is. That is going to be the country name where you stop at. This is going to get that value. Then I have country tip percentage. So now you know the country name that comes from here. How are you going to get the tip percentage? We don't have an array country tip percentage. So where would you get that from? You will get that from the dictionary. In the dictionary object, now this is how you get something out of the dictionary. You can say that you want Mexico. When you say that, it is going to go look up Mexico and pick up this value, right? Because this is the key, this is the value. That's how you get the value. For this one, instead of Mexico, you're going to pass in the country name. So there you go. That's how you get the country name. Now it's asking, there's an error. It wants to insert an exclamation, which we learned is Swift's way of saying that we are responsible if something goes wrong. That is fine. We are responsible. And then these two things are taken care of. So what's happening here? You're scrolling through this, and wherever you stop, you pick up a country name, you pick up a country tip percentage. And what else do you want to happen? What you want to happen is this label of the button should change. So how do you change that? So we have our button country text. You use a function called set title. It's asking for what should be the title. Any guess? The title will be the country name, and then what state. I want to say that it's going to be a normal state. So for that I use UI control state dot normal. All right, so that should do the trick. So these four functions, as you can see, it's quite a bit of code, but that is what's required to start populating this. There's one more thing we need to do. Similar to what we had done with the text box and controlling the UI, I'm going to go back to our main function here and say the picker needs to delegate to self. So what you're saying is this main view control, the view controller can control all of that. So that should complete the pieces of code needed to make this work. Let's see how it looks and if everything is okay. Build succeeded. That's good. All right. So you can see all the country names that we wanted in here. And when you scroll, you can see the settings change to whatever country you stop at. So the code is doing exactly what we asked it to do. So great. So when I choose Mexico, which we know the tip percentage is 10, 53, split it 3-way, and I hit calculate. What happened? As you can see, the tip percentage did not change to 10 as we would have expected it for Mexico. That is because we have changed the label and all those neat things, but we haven't updated our array of tip percentages, right? So we should be doing that. So let's go back in the code and finish up that part. All right, so after we assign this, I'm going to say the array for tip percentage 0 would be the country to percentage, and at index 1 would be relative percentage 0, so that if we start at 15, this will end up being 18. And let's do that one more time. And relative percentage index 2 would be the previous one. So if we are at 18, 18 plus 2, that makes it 20. If we start at 10, it would be 10, 13, and 15. Let's see if that is all wired up and good to go. Well succeeded. Going to say 67 and calculate. So that calculates that. If I make it Mexico and hit calculate, there you go. It's calculating the updated values. So it is working as expected. Let's go back in the code. So what do you have now? I need to, since this control is pretty big and I don't always like to see it, I want to hide it. So what we can do is when the form loads, I could say the app loads, I want picker country dot hidden equals true. So it's going to hide it. And then when I click on this button, remember we added a function here, button press for the country. I want to say picker country dot hidden equals false. So when you click on that, it's going to unhide. And then when I click anywhere else outside, for that, if you remember, we go to touches began. We go to this function and we are going to say picker country dot hidden equals true. So we are hiding it again. And let's see. There's one more thing I needed to add to this view controller. I wanted to say that I don't know if you saw when we hit calculate and this label expanded, this would creep up and go out of view. That's not a good experience, so I want to assign a certain height from top to that. I'm going to say I always need it to be 10 points from the top at that constraint, so that should take care of that. Let's run our code and see if everything is working as expected. So our app loads. So beautiful. Our picker is not visible. When I click on it, this should come up. I can select any country and up. So when I click somewhere outside for touches began, it does not work. So it's not hiding itself. We'll see what's up with that, but at least we got that part working. Let's go back. Let's look at touches began. For some reason, it is not executing this line. We won't worry about that too much. We will add this to one other button, that is calculate, when someone touches calculate. I want this to be hidden. So that should take care of that if this doesn't execute, and we'll see why that one doesn't execute. So that is all we needed to do for our tip calculator. So everything is working. You are well on your way for the world's best calculator. Let's say we are in the United States, went out dining, the bill was $57. I wanted to calculate the tip. It's showing me everything. That is good. Then for the weekend, I decided to travel to Mexico. Great. So I go there, and this time the bill is $45, and I'm splitting it two ways, and I'm hitting calculate. There you go. It starts at $10. So all the code is executing beautifully. You can go to any country now, or at least the countries that we have defined here, and be assured that it is going to calculate the right tip percentage. Now let's say we are in Switzerland and it's calculating the tip correctly. We had our dinner, we are still in Switzerland. I got out of the app, and then now it's time for breakfast, and I'm not flying out till later tonight. After I had my breakfast, I bring it up, and the bill is 67, and I want to calculate it, right? But you can see again, the country has returned to United States. That's not a good experience. You want the app to remember whatever you had said and whatever location you are. It shouldn't default back to United States all the time. So how do you take care of that? For that, I wanted to introduce the concept of persisting a value that we keep in the memory of the app, or rather on the device itself. So once you set it, it's going to remember and not going to forget. So for that, how do we do that? Uh, One way to do it is when you pick a country, I'm going to use something called NS user defaults dot standard user defaults dot set object, and then whatever key I want to do. I want to say XYZ. So this is the key. So similar to a dictionary object, it stores this object, lets you store, persist something using a key value pair. In this case, the key is XYZ, and the string is, the other way, rather. So for string ABC. So here, let me quickly take you through this. You're using NS user defaults. For the key ABC, you are storing XYZ. So that's how you store the key value pair. And then it just remembers that. And if you get out of the app, you have saved that in the app itself, and it's not going to forget it. In this particular case, what I want to be storing is the country name, and the key is whatever. You could use ABC. I'm just going to use mem country. All right. So what this is telling is, in this string for this key mem country, save our country name. So that should work. But what is the use of storing something in the application's memory if we are not going to read it back again when the app loads? So that's how you get it back. For that, I have to go back here, and I have to get back our country name. So let's attempt to do that. I'm going to say here, oh, this inside the for loop, sorry, right here, I want to get again ms user defaults dot standard user defaults. The function you will use is value for key, and it's asking what is the string. So if you remember, it is mem country. That's where we had stored it. So this is the way to read it back. Now once you read it, once you're reading it back, what do you want to happen? I want to assign this value to the label of the button. So if you remember, you do that by saying button country text dot set title, and this is the string that we want to use this time, and UI control state dot normal. All right, so you got it back. Here it is asking you to convert it to a memory type that it can remember. Okay, so now when you read it back from the memory, it doesn't know what object to read it back as. So I'm going to say in this case I want it as a string. Alright, so that should do it. Again, it doesn't like something. It's saying replace as with as. Okay, that is our good old exclamation mark. And again, it has some more suggestion, I believe. Okay, I'm going to add parentheses around it. There you go. So all error gone. So here you have set mem country to the country name, and here you're reading it back and assigning it to the country name. Now that is all good, but what if you didn't use this control, right? You never brought the setting up, and that's why this never got executed, and that's why nothing was stored in the memory, and it's going to try and attempt to read it. That won't have a good outcome. So that's why it's a good idea to check if this thing that you have here, if this is not, this is how you check if something exists and whether it's a nil or not. So do this only if it is not nil, right? So that will ensure that this is going to happen only if it's not nil. There's one other thing that we need to do. So once you read the value back from the memory, it's like you have been using this, right? It kind of has the same effect. But when you pick a country like this, either from the picker or from the memory, remember you need to update your tip array. So you can copy paste this within our f value here. That should do the trick. So let's execute this and see if it's working as expected. Been successful. All right. So I traveled to Mexico and I have a bill amount of 45 and I calculate. Everything looks good. I pay the bill. I get out. and the app is closed. Now I'm going to again bring up the app, and you can see that we are in Mexico and it remembers that. So this is a core concept here. Whenever you'll be using this a lot in future, you'll be saving a lot of things uh, that you want to persist and then bring back when the app loads. So this is a way to do it. Now, as long as this iPhone exists, or if you don't nuke it from the app's memory, it's going to remember this. That is something neat that you have achieved. Let's quickly enter a value to see if it does indeed remember. Oh, the tip percentage. It is still using 15. That is not good. Let me check. Italy here, and then calculate. So for Italy it works. For Mexico or United Kingdom, calculate. It works. United States 15. All right, let's see what's going on. Let's say Italy. Calculate Italy percentage tip. Starts at 10. So with this, we have persisted it in memory. I'm going to shut the app, bring it back. I'm going to use a tip amount and calculate. So it's going back to 15, 18, and 20. So let's quickly go back in our code and see what's going on. Why does it not update our array percentage? That is because, let's see, you have updated the value of the country and then the array tip percentage. So you can see something going on here. You have this value and you have your array tip percentage, but you are not using let me see what's going on. You got back the country text. You have to refer to the dictionary using that country text to make sure that it's using the right percentage. So I'm going to use dictionary country array tip country tip percentage equals dictionary country, and I'm going to look up this value in the dictionary and assign that to the country tip percentage. Let's see, insert. All right, so let's see if that does it. Bill amount $34. Calculate. There you go. So worked beautifully. So now you have a tip calculator that that remembers what country you are in, and with that you have learned how to persist something in memory. Let's quickly introduce you to the concept of writing a function. So one thing generally in coding that you have to remember is that when you have a certain piece of code like this, remember I copy pasted this from here. It's not a good idea to have the same piece of code in multiple places. That's because if tomorrow you decide you want to make some changes to the calculation here, you'll have to remember to do it in two places. And you won't remember it when you have hundreds and thousands of lines of code, and the function and the whole program is not going to work as expected. So for that, I'm going to introduce you to the concept of function. A function in Swift is a piece of code that you want to execute from different places. You have been using function all along, but those have been coming in from the class that we have extended. You're going to here write your own. So I'm going to say update tip array as a function. Now a function would, so here you have created your function, and it says, all right, what a function expects is you are going to pass it something, right? You can see all these things that you have been passing constantly without understanding much to a function. In here, what we want to pass is an integer, which is, let's call it tip percentage of type int. So all we are trying to do is pass this integer in, and then you want this code here within this function, and instead of country tip percentage, we are going to assign what was passed to the function. So as simple as that. So our function is ready. Now instead of calling this piece of code here, you could delete all that, and you could simply call our own function update tip array, and that we will pass the variable that we already have, which is the country tip percentage. So nothing really changes except you have created a function and using that to update our tip array. And now you will just use this in here as well. Instead of this, I'm going to use that. So what you see is now this is where your calculation or formula or the common piece of code can live, and you can invoke this function from wherever you want the array to be updated. So let's execute to make sure that that works. Bill succeeded. It remembers we're in Italy. That is great. 78 is our bill. I want to split it three-way, dining with some friends, calculate. I'm back to United States, and I have a bill of $50, splitting it two ways, calculate again. Everything works as expected. So there you go. You have the world's best tip calculator, providing you based on the type of service you got, how much is the total amount, you can travel with it abroad, it will use all the different values for different countries, it will remember what country you are in terms of persisting the setting. I keep calling it the world's best calculator is because, because it is. If you don't believe me, head over to the App Store, search for Tip Calculator, and check out if any of the other Tip Calculator does this much for its user, and you'll be pleasantly surprised. So there you go. Until next time, goodbye and happy coding.